Hey guys, I didn't know we were recording it. Good evening. This is James with Rewind Electric, and here we are tonight. We're going to be talking about these. These are the blue molded capacitors which you find inside of 1960s Fender blackface amplifiers. Film caps using the bypass positions, and also the death cap. I'm not even going to bother getting into that tonight. So we're going to talk a little bit about those, and we're going to talk a little bit about this guy here, which is my Sprague TO6A capacitor checker, also from the 1960s. Now, a very reasonable question one may have is, why would you want to use a capacitor checker from the 1960s when you've got all kinds of nice stuff like this? And let's see if we can get the camera to follow me this time. Hey. Okay, so we've got these nice modern digital multimeters. Got other meters here and other meters there. They can all measure capacitance. I've got an LCR meter that can measure capacitance very accurately at different frequencies. Well, this can also measure capacitance. What those other meters don't do is measure the condition of a capacitor regarding voltage leakage. There are ESR meters that measure series resistance of capacitors, but basically anything that you're running that runs off of a battery or two, like be it a AA or even those little ESR meters that are the size of a stack of business cards that run off of little like lithium cells, or a 9-volt battery in your multimeter. If you're running it off of a couple volts, then you're only testing it at a couple volts. That's the problem. In our guitar amplifiers, we do not run these capacitors at a couple volts. There's a reason that we use these 400 volt and 600 volt rated caps, because that's what we run them at. So if this capacitor has no DC leakage, and I guess I should say that DC leakage is a flaw in a capacitor, which is undesirable in a guitar amp for both sound and safety. It's something, when the capacitor breaks down and fails, it passes DC voltage. A capacitor should pass AC, alternating signals as sound waves that we listen to, but it should not pass DC. And that's why they're called coupling caps, because they couple the DC to the non-DC part, or one stage to another, and they block the DC. That's why they're called bypass caps, because they bypass the AC and block the DC. It's a weird term, right? There's probably a better reason for it than that. But they're not supposed to pass DC. That's the point. And most old caps do. These, give you another close up here. That's upside down. These are fantastic. Very rarely do these fail, actually. I hardly ever find them that aren't good. They're similar to the Phillips mustard caps found in Marshalls in that regard. They're very good capacitors. So this old meter, I'm going to turn off that follow me feature. Well, maybe it's turned itself off. The camera decided it didn't like me. Who could blame it for not wanting to follow me? The Sprague capacitor checker here, it will measure the capacitance, and it does so in a super cool way with what's known as a magic eye tube. It's this green cathode ray tube that illuminates phosphors. And more importantly, though, it tests for leakage, and it tests it. If you have a look here at these settings, it'll it has a setting to test caps that are rated for 60 to 600 volts. So, and that is what it will do. It will run that voltage and more actually through these leads here and test the capacitor. So that's what we're going to do today. My buddy Tanner Yates, who also has a YouTube channel that you should check out because it is much more polished and beautiful looking than mine, called Yatesy Guitar, and he is restoring right now a Fender Vibrolux Reverb, which is one of the coolest blackface Fender amps of the 1960s. And in it, he's got most of the original parts in it already, and he's putting in vintage parts to replace stuff that was previously removed and replaced with modern parts. And the one thing he's missing, one of these guys. And it just so happens that I have at least a few of them. So I thought I would find him one to help him get that amp up and running in an original state, because that's these are great amps, and that's why I keep things like that, because let's try to do that. So I am going to turn on the ancient, just kidding, the modern capacitor checker here, multimeter, just to get a reference on what that cap reads. Sure enough, it's going to read perfectly because that's just how these guys are. I'm also going to simultaneously turn this on, because it is itself an old piece of gear. I'm going to bring it up slowly on my benchtop power supply on the Variac portion. Not just because it does have old parts in it itself, but because it's not made to run at modern 125 volt voltage. It's probably made to run at 117, maybe 115. We're going to run it at 117. Now, I actually attempted a service on it, and I went through the testing procedure before the service so that I could know where it sat, and then do the calibration and service on it, and then test it again, see the improvement. And it actually, it tested like perfectly. So I did not do anything to it. I didn't change out any of the parts. There's some Black Beauty capacitors in there, which are like film caps from the 60s. They're not great. They're pretty poor in high voltage test equipment, to be honest. They're not as bad as the Bumblebees that are awful, but check this out. This is a kit here of test leads, various types of connections on them from Fluke for testing kilovolt electronics. I think we will use these. Gander on that guy there. You see how that works? It's a little plunger with a hook, and that grabs onto your leads. I think that'll be a good one for tonight. So anyway, yeah, I left those Black Beauties in here. I'll change them out at some point, but it's working perfect. So I had a hard time feeling you need to do that. I should have turned it on before I brought it up. Okay. There we go, 117 volts. So, why don't I do this? There we go. That'll be a good view. Let's first test this on the modern meter. Can you guys see if I shut the light out? If I move my big head out of the way? Yeah, okay. And that reads 47.3 nanofarads, so that is a perfect 0.047 microfarads. 0.0473, all right? Yeah, it is reading exactly what it's rated to read, which is no surprise at all to me. I'm going to move that to DC volts for something we'll try later. And I'm just going to clip yield capacitor onto here As such, a tip, if you use one of these, keep this way out of anywhere where your elbows can bump, because we are going to be passing over 600 volts DC through those open connectors. So we'll not have it leaning on the metal toolbox or the soldering iron. We'll keep it, you know, over here. Okay, let me first try to read capacitance on it with this. This is capable of doing that. I'm just not terribly familiar with how to do it because I don't do it often, but it does it in such a cool way with this Magic Eye tube. I'd like to try and show you. So let's see if I can get a handle on that. Okay, it's a 0.047 cap, so we select our range here, and then we follow that. We're at C4. You follow that over here, C4. No, sorry, we're C3. C3. So we're going to use the middle scale, and the second number down is C3. Now, the way this works is you rotate this dial until this Magic Eye does something. And that's what I don't recall. Well, what this will do is, if you imagine like this to be the circle, although that's kind of upside down, it'll open and close. So they call it eye opening and closing. You'll see a gap forming and closing at the bottom of it there. And I don't remember if it's giving you the reading on the dial at the point that is most open or most closed or just started to, I forget. We'll probably figure it out though, because we know what that cap reads. So we should be able to dial that in. Let's see, we're coming up on 0.03 here. See, we're using the second number down in the middle scale because we're on C3, C3. And so we should be, we're passing 0.045. This should do something in a minute. Now, oh, because we're on the test. Derp. Move to test. Okay, and we'll try it again. Okay, we are approaching it again. And yeah, I don't actually see it doing anything. Certainly, I must be doing something wrong. Oh, it is starting to do something now. Well, I don't know if you can see it, but it is starting to open and close a little bit there. And that's reading just under 0.04. So I think I'm probably doing something wrong, because this is more accurate than that. I don't remember what this does. I have the original spiral bound printed manual for this. I probably should take advantage of that and read it. Okay, well, I really just wanted to show you what that eye does. There we go. Look, at least you can see what it's doing. Do you see that opening and closing? So, in some way, maybe it's just like perfectly closed but not overlapping, or when it says most open, I forget. It's some position in its doing things that gives you the capacitance value. That's not what we're here to do today, cool as it is, okay? We're going to measure DC leakage. So we're going to run a DC voltage through this capacitor and measure it on here. So if I hold this button down, it will tell me the voltage which I am running through it. So right now it's running 3 volts, 4, 5, 6 volts. And if I let go of this voltage, the meter will then read the amount of leakage. Okay? And it's below 0, so nothing, it's 6 volts. No surprise, that's exactly what we expected. Okay? Let's go up to 6 to 60 volts. Okay? So we are feeding it 60 volts there, and it's not leaking at all. Okay, now I'm going to take this down because we're going to go to 60 to 600 volts. This is a 400 volt rated capacitor from about 1964, and I would be surprised if any capacitor still worked at its rated voltage after that amount of time, but I won't be surprised if this one does. So nothing, and we are at 300, and let's take it up to 400 volts. Let's get it all the way to its rated voltage. That's easily over 400, accounting for parallax. Nothing at all. Okay, let's go up to 500 volts. A little past it. Okay, yeah, nothing at all. 0 volts of leakage. And we are at the high current setting here too. Okay, that is over 600 volts. Nothing. And at that point, the meter is pegged. The meter won't read higher than that, but the knob will turn farther. Nothing. This is only about 2/3 of the way up. It's going to put out more than 600 volts. Okay, let's take it up. Did you see how much more that went up? Nothing. Like I said, those blue molded capacitors are excellent vintage capacitors. Sound, durability, longevity, value, leakage, capacitance value. I mean, oh, monetary value too. I mean, they're not cheap. Okay, so yeah, that rocks, right? We've gone to the discharge position, which shorts these leads. So we're now shorting the capacitor. But I am the kind of guy that likes to be doubly safe, so I'm going to do a little bit of this here, see if there's any sparks, and no, there's not. All right, so Tanner, here's your awesome new component for your Vibrolux reverb coming to you. Now, I said we were going to do a thing with this on DC voltage. Have some fun. Okay, let's do that. This is still set where it was. We're in discharge, and I've turned this dial down. Let's see how much juice that cap was taking. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going to clipping the output leads of this capacitor checker onto the test leads for the bench multimeter. I'm going to turn the light up, and I'm going to try to zoom in on that too. Okay, so now you can watch that screen, and my head will be out of it, so it shouldn't focus on there. As I bring this up, okay, 60 to 600 volts, discharge, we're going back to test. That means this is live, and that's jumped up to 3.5 volts already, because remember we're at 60 to 600 volts here. Okay, and I'm going to increase it. Okay, there, it's jumping up over 100 volts, over 200 volts, 300, 350, 400 volts, 500 volts, 601. Okay, that's where this was, and yep, we're reading just about 600 volts. Okay, so that's about right. Interestingly, that meter dropped down for a brief second when I did that. Okay, let's keep it going. We have this maxed out. Oh my gosh, it just keeps going. 3. Okay, I saw that you can go up higher. 713 volts. Oh my gosh! Wow. So, yeah, 713 volts. Let's bring this guy back. Yeah, so, wow. Pretty tough little guy, huh? That, you know, I don't think there's a lot of known history about these. People call them Mallory, which Fender used a lot of Mallory caps, but there's nothing written on these to make me think these are made by Mallory. I've never seen that. This one doesn't say anything. It just says molded and made in the U.S. And it has its ratings, and it indicates the outside foil. Some of them say Ajax, So I've always called them Ajax because some of them are branded as Ajax. People call them blue sausages. You know, blue film caps, blue molded caps. Not the blue drops or the blue turds people call the later caps that I think were Mallory made. Those were Mallory, and those are more like orange drop cap shaped. Yeah, so that's something different. Hey, this episode has been brought to you by Perrier. Bubbly beverage in a glass bottle for those humans who want to play with high voltage and remain vigilant and living. Delicious. That's all I got. See ya.